Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me this afternoon in the locker room. I'm Alan Locker. Today, Emmy Award-winning actor Nicolas Coster is here to discuss his new memoir, Another Whole Afternoon, where he shares his reflections from a London kid's transition from a British privileged life to becoming an American, from cowboy to factory worker, from movie actor to presidential guard, on Broadway to daytime soap opera fame and primetime TV star. A turbulent but rewarding love life, all in search of creative expression. Along the way, introducing disabled scuba divers and fellow celebrities to the wonders of the great undersea world. Truly harrowing Atlantic crossings as well as tranquil tropical splendors, the memories he shares reflect an adventurous life many would envy. Daytime television fans will recognize Nicolas from his popular roles on As the World Turns, Edward Grimaldi, Another World, Robert Delaney, and Santa Barbara, Lionel Lockridge, to name just a very small few of those roles. In his 70-year career, Nicolas has appeared in over a dozen soaps, countless primetime television shows, and scores of stage and screen productions. This new memoir, Another Whole Afternoon, is his first behind-the-scenes retelling of his life in front of the camera and his adventures beyond it. It is truly my pleasure to welcome Nicolas Coster to the locker room. Hello there, sir.
Hi.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, boy, it's a pleasure.
Well, I can tell you, fans from the minute, I think you and I actually communicated on Facebook, and fans were excited about the prospect of you doing this. And you've definitely left an impression with the daytime community. You know that. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I didn't hear the question. There was a skip.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it might be the internet. I just said you've left, a mark with the daytime television fans, with all of the roles you've played.
Thank you.
Talk about the book. Talk about the book. What prompted you to write it?
Well, a bunch of guys that I was in a group with, a men's group, and we were talking about stuff that we had to fix in our lives and so on and so forth. It was not casual, but it wasn't formal. And so one day I said, "Yeah,
Nope, I was just showing the book cover.
Oh, okay." So one day some of them are very famous writers and actors and bankers and stuff like that. So, and they're all a great sense of humor. I can't name any because it was a privileged group. But they said, "Well, Nick, why don't you write these stories?" I said, "Well, my mother and father were both fine writers. I feel a little shy. I'm not exactly John Updike." And he said, forget that. Just write it the way you tell the story. So I did. I sat down and started to write. And then for some reason or other, I stopped a couple of years ago. But during COVID, I was in Russia with my adorable wife. And I met a guy named Eddie Aronoff, an American writer, producer. And he said, and we went to lunch, and he said, "You've written part of a biography?" And I said, "Well, it's not exactly a biography." So he said, "Let me see it." So he read it, and he said, "Nick, this is terrific, but you need an editor." I said, "Do it." So he did.
That's awesome.
And it was simply a wonderful relationship. And I'll tell you one thing about it. There was probably his greatest contribution. He looked at about 60, 80 pages that I finally wrote, and he said, "Nick, there's only one thing, and that is that you use the terms one has or one has seen or one has been, so on and so forth." I said, "In other words, it seems objective." He said, "Yes." I rewrote the entire book. And I'll tell you a little story about that. My father was a big time columnist and critic in England before the war, and that war. And my mother always said of him, he would have been a great writer if he'd been able to do a rewrite. But he was a journalist, he put it down on paper and they published it and that was it. So I don't know, maybe I remembered that. But when Eddie said that, I rewrote this entire book in 3 months, and it's very personal. A lot of it, very personal. So, and he read it and he said, "That's it." And
Hey,
so I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the book, and I'm proud of my mentors who all helped, including Elena, who's sitting with me. Yeah.
did you keep a journal throughout your life, or did you just have a great memory? Your
It's
memory.
all memory. And people say, "You mean you wrote this thing?" Some of my boating friends who know me as a boatman and a kind of cavalier, scuba diver, they said, "You wrote this thing?" I said, "Every word, every single word." Yeah, yeah.
That's incredible. And so you were you born in England?
I was born in England of an American mother and a New Zealand father. And then
Oh,
she brought us over here, which is in the book, at the beginning of the war, to keep us from the dangers in Europe.
mm.
And
Smart mom.
yeah, yeah.
And what do you remember? Do you remember anything about growing up there?
Oh, it's, yeah, yeah, lots. Starting with stuff, as Mr. Lager already said, the book is a mixture of memoirs, memories, including pictures. There are a lot of pictures. My adorable sister saved pictures. Thank God for this librarian sister of mine. And so one of the pictures is
Pictures
of me
tell a
sitting,
story in a great way, don't they?
well, one of the pictures is of me sitting on Gene Autry's horse at the Savoy Hotel in London in 1939 or 38, maybe late 38. And I was like, 5 years old, and I wasn't really scared. My face is kind of funny in the picture, but Gene Autry at that time was the most famous cowboy in the world, preceding Roy Rogers, who then became the most famous cowboy in the world. There's also a picture of me when a little kid. My mother got a job at the same studio where this unknown cowboy had just been put under contract, and his name was Roy Rogers. So we have a picture of us with him, my brother and sister and me, and stuff like that. So there are a lot of good pictures, and stuff from the soap operas like One Life to Live, which I did just before Santa Barbara, and that was fabulous. It couldn't have been better. The cast, the directors, the producer at the time, it was just heaven. And I had these two leading ladies, and so I write about them and show some pictures.
You've had a few leading ladies throughout the years, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
this is true.
You
Yeah.
certainly have. So who or what influenced you on becoming an actor?
Again, it's in the book, but I'll shorten the tale a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, I was There was a lot of bigotry in California and elsewhere in the United States in the early 50s and late 40s, and including anti-Mexican sentiment. Now, I got transferred to a school that was largely Mexican American. So we kind of, in grammar school, and we kind of grew up together defending each other when we got to high school, including this little kid who had been razzing the student body president, who was kind of a fascist, and he really shouldn't have been the president of a democratic student body. But the president of the student body paid somebody a couple of dollars to go beat this kid up, and I found out about it. And I went to the principal, but he also was a bit of a fascist, and he listened to my urgent appeal to suspend this kid, the president. He said, "Get out of my office. You're a troublemaker." Now, I had no choice. I left the office, but outside the office was the public speaking teacher. And she said, "Come here, you. I got to put that big mouth of yours to work because you're very good at speaking." And she put me in a Lions Club speech contest, and I won everything, including Southern California. Then I was disqualified because I was 45 seconds short. I was the last one up, and I could feel the audience getting fidgety. And even then, I could feel an audience. And so I sped it up. and I got disqualified because I was 45 seconds short. And the guy went on to win a 4-year scholarship to college. The guy that won, and blah blah blah. But that got me started. And then a series of events, which again are recorded in the book,
Yeah.
where I wasn't such a well-behaved teenager. My mother and I mutually decided I should return to England to my father, whom I hadn't seen in 11 years because he got remarried and blah, blah, blah. So I went to the Royal Academy and continued. I didn't do as well as I might have at the Royal Academy, but I sure learned a lot. And as far as I know, I'm one of the few of that class that has made a living at it all these years.
In a later you certainly class, have.
Well, in a later class, I did a Broadway show with a guy named Tom Courtenay, who was one of the greatest actors in English history. And he and I became very chum. He was at RADA, the Royal Academy, a little later than I. And in his class, they had Albert Finney, Peter O'Toole, Alan Bates, and Tom Courtenay, all in one class.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's incredible.
We great pals. We did a Broadway show with Harold Pinter, who directed, the great British playwright. And
did you come back to the States right after RADA?
I did it. No, I went to California. I did a stage play in California right after. Yeah, actually, I did a couple, but not for money. They were community theater, and my Pasadena auntie belonged to the Assistants League, and I did one there. And frankly, I wasn't very good. And finally, I left and went in the Army. And while I was in the Army, I was in the Honor Guard in Washington, in Arlington. And I used to go up to Broadway and see these shows. And I went, oh, I want to be a New York actor. So when I got out of
I want to be on that stage. Well, first of all, thank you for your service to our country.
It was a pleasure. I was in between the wars, so I was very lucky. But we've tried to support our servicemen who served in the wars, including, for years, I taught disabled scuba divers, including a lot of veterans, many of whom had been in the Vietnam War, wounded veterans. And we went on to teach wounded veterans here in LA to sail on that big sailboat. I have my boating life, which is another side of my life. I have
for fans watching, Nicolas is joining us from his boat in California today. So very excited about that. Where did the scuba, your love of scuba and teaching it come from?
I think when I was a little kid, the war was on, and we lived in North Hollywood, but I belonged to the Cub Scouts, and we used to go out to a place called Birmingham Army Hospital. I don't know, those who are film buffs, you probably remember Marlon Brando in his first film called The Men, about veterans in the Army Hospital. That was it, Birmingham. It is, for many, many decades, it's been a high school. But at that time, we, as 9-year-old kids, we went out and visited the wounded veterans during the Second World War. Many had crater holes in their heads, and some of them had steel plates, and most of them, obviously, what we now call post-traumatic stress disorder. It was, in those days, it was called battle fatigue. So most of them had that, and they were missing limbs and sight. And we made little joke books out of all the jokes in magazines, from Collier's and Look magazine and the New Yorker. We would paste them on a scrapbook and take them to the veterans, and they get the biggest kick out of just looking at these jokes and laughing. So that was my introduction to people with challenges, physical and mental challenges. And then years and years went by, and I had become a sort of quasi-celebrity, and a Vietnam veteran who was quite severely wounded called me and said, Nick Coster, my name is Jim Gettiker, and I'm starting something called the Handicapped Scuba Association, and we need funds, and would you help us raise it? I said, hell yeah. So I got on something celebrity thing, and we won a bunch of $1,000. And I said, well, I want to do this. He said, you're welcome. So I was in the first class of handicapped scuba instructors, having already been a scuba instructor. And I've been doing it ever since. And Jim Gattaker is just a prince among princes. And if any of you feel like contributing, it's the Handicapped Scuba Association.
The Handicap Scuba Association. I will look that up and put the link up on the screen in a minute. How long have you lived on a boat?
9 years.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, my beloved ex-wife, Beth, she, when we amicably parted, she said, and we agreed that she and my son, who was alive then, should keep the house. And she said, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm not going to live like a convict. I'll live on a boat. It's cheap. So I did. And it wasn't exactly cheap. The first boat was 65 feet long, which is 19 and a half meters, right?
So tell me the name of is it the Scuba, the Handicapped Scuba
Association, HSA.
It is HSA. Okay, great. I'm going to put that up for anybody who wants to.
There's another young woman, she was then, when we first started in 82, we were in the same class, and she's remained my devoted friends ever since. I call her the Mother Teresa of handicap diving. She's still doing it and has taught more disabled divers than anybody except Jim Gattaker. And she's a fabulous woman, and she's still doing it. She's a physical therapist, a recreational therapist by profession, but she does it every week. She's still working with disabled people.
That's amazing. Kudos. That's the website if anybody wants to take a look or to donate. So, Nicolas, you talked about going to New York from DC, and you wanted to be on stage. What was your first Broadway show that you appeared in?
Well, a little short story. I kept auditioning for Broadway shows, but everybody else got the parts for a couple of years. So when September would roll around and the Broadway shows were all cast for the fall, I would go out to repertory companies, the Barter Theater first, the Arena Stage, the Baltimore Center Stage. And finally, long after I became a fairly well-known actor, I helped found the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, which was the biggest opening in North America. So I kept going out to those shows, but finally, I auditioned for a Broadway show, A Replacement. And the casting director, who was a brilliant playwright in his own life, Michael Shurtleff, he was very amused at me. And he said, well, you have the part. And I said, well, what's the part? He said, would you be the standby for Sir Laurence Olivier? I went, what? The greatest actor in the English language? I'm going to be a standby? I think I can do that. So it was very funny. Olivier was switching parts. Anthony Quinn had played the king for a long time, and Olivier played Beckett in the play Beckett. And he was switching parts, so he was still playing the Beckett while he was rehearsing to play the king. And I helped him with his lines at the request of the stage manager. And we got to be kind of chummy. And he said, Nicolas, do you have any relatives in England? I said, well, I had. My pop was an English writer. He said, not Ian Coster. I said, yeah. He said, oh, for God's sake, why didn't you tell me? He was a great chum of mine. I said, I know. He said, why didn't you tell me? I said, well, I guess a lot of the companies seem to be kissing your bum, and I wanted to be the exception. Well, we were such good friends for the whole run that finally when he married Joan Plowright at the end of the run, I was the one that was asked to give the toast. And
oh, wow.
Great compliment.
And you worked opposite the one and only Elizabeth Taylor on stage.
Yeah.
What was she like?
I'm sorry?
What was she like? What was that experience like with Elizabeth Taylor?
It was fabulous right the way through, and I'm not making it up. I try to tell the truth, and then perhaps I avoid the truth. I avoid telling about it if it's unpleasant, and
Right.
it's just gossip. I'm not a gossiper. So Elizabeth was the most vibrant, funny, selfless, generous person. There's a story in the book when Beth and I got married, my second, that adorable wife I talked about. We had Elizabeth gave us our wedding dinner and cooked it herself in London and washed the dishes with Burton's ring. 90
You
billion
mean
dollars.
Liz Taylor washes dishes?
But she was such fun. We partied, and a quick story that's in the book. My children, my two daughters, grew up on 110th and Broadway in a little middle class apartment, and but I kind of insisted on good table manners, among other things. And finally, my young daughter, she was about 4, she said, "Pop," I said, what are manners?" I said, "Well, basically consideration. Some of them are archaic, like putting your cloak down so a woman can cross the puddle. We don't do that anymore.
No.
We do. I still walk on the outside of a woman on the sidewalk. I have no idea why, but I traced it, and it goes back to the days that people threw potties off the balconies, and the man would get the poo-poo and not the delightfully dressed woman. So that was a courtesy. But I said beyond that, when you put your knife and fork together on your plate after you're finished, it signals that you're finished without saying, "Oi, I'm finished." So, so and then I said, finally, when all else failed, my dear mama used to say, "And someday you might eat with the royal family." To which they would reply with a great guffaw, "Yeah, sure. We're on the 110th. We're going to eat with the royal family." We did, with Elizabeth Taylor. And
Wow.
the girls, when they would use the proper fork for the fish and so on and so forth, they would just look at me and go, and point. There was the cousin of the Queen, Prince Michael of Kent. We sat at the table with, and Elizabeth was with the other closer members of the royal family. But Michael of Kent, I couldn't help staring at him because he looked exactly like Tsar Nicholas, and they were cousins. The Kaiser of Germany during the First World War, and Tsar Nicholas, who was assassinated, and King George V were all cousins. And this guy, I kept looking at him. He's still alive. I saw him the other day. I saw a picture of him. He still looks like as if the Tsar had lived.
Well, I bet your daughters are glad you taught them those manners.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, it might be hard to pick, but a favorite stage role?
Stage role?
Favorite?
The Blood Knot. Blood Knot. It was a play written by Athol Fugard, a South African white man, about a black brother and a white brother having had both the same mother and different fathers. And the white brother has left trying to be white for years and comes back. This is in South Africa. And he comes back having failed to do so by admitting something and being beaten up and blah, blah, blah. But he comes back to his black brother and tries to adjust. And they both try to adjust to each other. So it's really not about color. It's about brothers. But it speaks volumes about prejudice. And it was a fabulous play. And I enjoyed doing it in New York with Lou Gossett Jr.
I was going to ask who the brother was.
The princes of all time.
Wow.
And in California, I did it with a man named Rupert Cross, who died soon after, but he was also quite wonderful.
I don't know his name. I of course know Louis. I don't know who that Rupert is, but
he did only one movie. He did only one movie, which was The Reavers, and he got an Academy Award for a nomination for that role. playing a hobo in a boxcar. And he
Wow.
was just great. He was a great actor. It was a great loss. And could I talk a little about A. Martinez?
Yes, we're going to get to soap stuff, but go ahead. Go to A. Martinez.
I went to see Blood Knot in Malibu a couple years ago, a year and a half or so ago. And who's playing my part? A. Martinez.
Love
And Luke
that.
Gossett directed it. And he was absolutely brilliant. But he was also very generous, because this is the opening night of the show. From the stage, he calls to me sitting in the audience and said, I want to salute Nicolas Coster, who created this role in New York. I went, oh my God. Now,
He's a nice guy. I interviewed him once.
Plus, he's
Really
smart, and he's
talented.
a dear, terrific guy. Yeah.
Talented. So, the soap opera world, you have appeared in so many. As the World Turns, you were, now I may have this wrong. You did Our Private World with Eileen, and then that was canceled. And then did you go to As the World Turns?
Yeah,
after
I went
that?
back as John Eldridge, her second husband. I went back to As the World Turns when Private World didn't make it.
Wow.
It was kind of sad because they tried to just shift the whole daytime format to nighttime. And, you know, they'd already done Peyton Place and stuff like that, which were beautifully done evening soap operas.
Mm-hmm.
So it was sad. So, yeah, I did that for a while, and then I left. And
what do you remember about that time working with Eileen? Because then you came back later.
Oh, we were crazy about each other. And then years later, like how many decades later? I came
Decades
back
later. Decades later.
Grimaldi, and it was after Santa Barbara went off the air, and they called me and said, "We have this interesting part, and you're so good with dialects and all the rest of it." And so I researched. He was from Malta.
Malta, yeah.
Are an incredible bunch of people because there's such a mixture of cultures, from the Phoenicians all the way through every invasion that's ever taken place, and dropped their seed, as it were. So I played Eduardo, and the guy who played my nephew was
Paolo
a real
Saganti. Paolo Saganti.
Yeah, Paolo, and we were buddies, and we just loved doing it. I don't know why it didn't last.
You know, he's got a restaurant in LA.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll get the info and send it to you.
Great. We rode motorcycles together. And he didn't know I rode a motorcycle for 50 years. So he parked his hot bike outside a restaurant we were at. I said, oh, let me ride your bike. Give me your helmet. Boom! And I wheelied out, down, up 9th Avenue or whatever, 10th, 8th Avenue. He said, good God, you scared the hell out of me, Nick. He didn't tell me to do those things. I said, yeah, only 50 years. So,
and not only Paolo, then Claire Bloom played his mother.
Well, that was the most interesting thing, because Claire I had seen for years and years, and I knew her ex-husband very well, Rod Steiger, and we had a lot in common, starting with drama school in England. But one of the nicest story I can relate about her was in the book. A stagehand came over after he watched a scene of ours, and he said, God, watching you two is like watching a movie. I said, that's very nice, because we do try, no matter what the literature, we try to bring out the best.
That was great story, because I'm a As the World Turns fan, and then I ended up working there, but I was watching during that time, and that was great story with Paolo, you, and Claire.
And then they killed me in the kitchen.
Yeah.
No, they killed me in a hospital.
Yeah, they killed you. Somebody said
As the World Turned.
They said your blood was squeezed. They said your blood was squeezed out in the ER in Oakdale.
That's right. She killed me, didn't she?
I think she did.
I hope that Claire is happy. She, her my favorite islands are the Caribbean islands. Hers was the Greek island, and she had acquired a place in the Greek islands when I knew her, and I hope she's happy there. And if you ever get in touch with her, do give her my best. She was.
I would. I mean, she was fabulous as. I think the character Orlena, I think was the character. One of our fans, Sydney, was curious to know if you were still on Secret Storm when Joan Crawford filled in for her daughter.
I was.
Wow.
I wasn't there that day, but my best buddy Keith Charles was and played opposite her.
Oh,
She
wow.
was my daughter, right? 40 years younger.
Yeah.
And shall we say, just to be kind, it was a travesty.
Yeah, that, I mean, to fill in for your daughters, that's a strange casting.
Well, and with that sort of bizarre style, which sort of gone out of fashion.
And Robert was asking, can you talk about your experience on Big Business with Lily Tomlin and Bet?
Oh, yeah. I didn't work with either one of them.
Yeah.
I met them both after it was shot. But Deborah Rush, who played my wife in that thing, oh my God, we had a hoot of a time. And the director was fabulous. I loved doing that movie.
And that was shot in New York, right? Shot in New York? It was shot in New York, wasn't it?
No.
No, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm.
Where did we shoot that?
I could be wrong. I don't really remember.
Yeah,
it's a long time. Steve was asking, can you talk about working with Wynn Miller on Somerset?
Oh gosh, yeah. The lovely Wynn Miller. She was my first lady love on Somerset. It wasn't Marie Wallace, who I have been in touch with later. But Wynn Miller was the niece of the great band leader, Glenn Miller, who died in the Civil War. And he played trombone. And when I was in high school, that's what I played. So we had something to begin talking about. But she was a gentle and gracious lady. I hope.
Yeah, that I don't know. Chris was asking, you were on Dallas in the lead up to Who Shot JR Frenzy. Did people used to come up to you on the street to ask you who shot JR?
Yeah. Yeah. And funny enough, that's the last time I saw Olivier. I was shooting that in Dallas, and Olivier was shooting that thing where he played another rabbi with, who was the great singer at the time? Neil Diamond. And I went over to see Olivier. That's the last time I saw him. That is Lord Olivier.
Lord Olivier at that time, yeah.
I had started on Broadway with. And, oh, hello, Nicholas. Hello, Nicholas. He was a little fragile at that time. But, yeah, Dallas, that was a fun thing.
I mean, I think everybody was talking about JR. Everybody wanted to know who shot JR.
Yeah.
Marie Wallace, somebody said it's her birthday today.
Ah, happy birthday, Marie.
Yeah.
Talk about a delight. Sharp, witty, beautiful. She had it all. She has it all. She's still gorgeous. Yeah, we actually were in touch a few weeks ago.
Oh, that's amazing. You mentioned A. Martinez earlier, but Amy was asking, can you share Santa Barbara memories of working with Louise Sorel and Judith McConnell? I know that you told me you're very close with Louise.
And Judith.
Both?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Louise didn't go, but Judith and a whole bunch of Lane Davis and everybody, we went on a cruise, a celebrity cruise, just before COVID. It broke out right afterward, and they stopped all the cruise ships. But Louise is one of my dearest friends in the world, and she has actually read my book. And Louise is not taken to dropping compliments gratuitously, and she was so complimentary. And I won't repeat what she said, but it was just.
Was this a soap opera cruise for fans, or you just all went personally?
Sorry?
The cruise that you went on, was it a fan event or just personally you all?
Yeah, it was a Santa Barbara fan event.
Oh,
And
fun.
Caribbean.
huh?
Caribbean.
The
Sorry,
Caribbean. Yeah, I heard her. The Caribbean.
Caribbean cruise. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
Caribbean cruise. And I'm trying to think of who else was.
Sherilyn Walter.
Yeah, Charlotte Walters,
A. Martinez.
A. Martinez,
Lane Davis.
Lane Davis.
Carly.
Sorry.
Carly Coster.
Oh yeah,
Harley
yeah.
Kozak.
Oh God, and just a whole bunch
Yeah,
of wonderful people.
Oh,
And
that.
Judith McConnell was there discoing with my wife. I didn't make it until 3 in the morning, and
That's-
so they had a
that's
great
fun.
time. Great
That's
time.
fun. So you've done stage, you've done prime time, you've done movies, but daytime television is some of the hardest work. And you started it, early. What do you think working in daytime taught you?
The same thing that stage does. When you're out there, because we started Young Dr. Malone and Secret Storm and Another World, we were all doing them live at first. And it teaches you to get through it, pal, no matter what happens. If you have Asian flu and you got problems, just smile and keep going. I must say, in those days, they did have teleprompters or cards. And I got almost as good as Johnny Carson at reading those cards because I was always doing a play at night as well. So it was a little tough. But yeah, the immediacy of doing daytime when it was live, there was nothing like it. It scared the hell out of older actors who couldn't remember their lines very well.
I bet.
So in those days, I was pretty good. If not the right lines, I was good at paraphrasing.
Mhm.
And so, yeah.
I'm sure training at RADA helps that a lot.
Yeah, it did. It did indeed. And watching
and doing stage, as much stage as you've done.
Sorry?
As much stage as you've done as well helps you, learn all that. Doing stage work.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. You just keep going no matter what happens. Speaking of Elizabeth Taylor, Robert Lansing and J.D. Cannon, and I say it in the book, we had 150 years of theater between us. And Elizabeth saved each one of us if we'd stumble or have a pause that looked like we'd gone up in our lines or something. Boom, Elizabeth was right there. She was such a pro, such a pro. And yeah, and she never lorded it over anybody at all. She was a gutsy, wonderful woman.
That's amazing. Do you have a favorite soap role that you've done?
Well, I think because of the variety, Santa Barbara, but
what is it about Lionel that you loved? What is it about Lionel that you loved?
I think the mixture of his supreme confidence in certain areas and absolute immodesty, but also his fallibility. He was capable of failing and recovering, which hopefully is a little like me.
And you created the role of Robert Delaney on Somerset in March of 1970, and then brought that character to Another World playing the same role. Do you remember how that came about?
Oh, very well. I hate to keep saying in the book, but there we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the book, available on Amazon.
We had a producer who should be nameless, and I won't even describe him, but he was verbally abusive to an actress, and I caught him, and I kind of threatened him. And the actress is still my friend, and she still remembers the incident. Said, "You were so chivalrous. You threatened to knock him through the wall." Yeah, something like that. Well, I got fired, needless to say. And I'm walking down the hall, and Paul Rausch, who was then producing Another World, said,
Yeah.
"Come on, Nick, you want to play that part on my show?" I said, "Hell yeah." So I did for 6 years, and it was heaven. Susan Sullivan was just the greatest. Beverly and I had some difficulty, but she was rest her soul. She was a brilliant actress.
Brilliant. I didn't know her on Another World, but
Yeah,
I watched her on Guiding Light, and she truly was one of the most spectacular.
and we just didn't hit it off. Maybe it was because on screen we didn't. Maybe we were playing our characters off screen a little bit. One sometimes, however unneurotic you think you are, sometimes you channel these parts a little too much.
Mhm.
And when you play the same part for years, it can affect you, I think. I think on Broadway, I played a rat, a real scoundrel in Otherwise Engaged, written by Simon Gray, and that's the one that had Tom Courtenay and a lot of other good actors. And I realized that by the end of the run, I was sort of behaving a bit like him. And I had to catch myself. I said, I've just done something that I would only do on stage in that character. And
Interesting.
I once said that acting is like selective schizophrenia. You put yourself in that situation and you become it for a while. And then if you're not psychopathic, you come out of it. If you are a little touched, then I've heard of some very great actors who played their role off stage or off film, you know.
What do you remember working for Paul Rausch?
Well, on Another World, he was the most creative daytime producer I ever worked with. He was wildly creative and allowed me to be. And Susan Sullivan, who was my leading lady for most of the time, he just had that instinct of letting the creative finding. For one thing, most of us came from the theater. He would go to all the Broadway shows and off-Broadway shows, and he would hire actors. Conrad Bain, all these wonderful actors that were on that show came from the theater. So it brought a certain energy and focus and character delineation. It's not despising people who've never done theater, because there's some awfully good soap actors who've never done theater. They just are brilliant natural actors. But the ones who did a lot of theater, I say by and large, were terrific to work with. So he did that. He hired people, and then he let them have as much reign as they could possibly run with. And so he was something. And then he also, I worked with him again years later on One Life to Live, when I played a gangster, a kind of sophisticated gangster. I loved that role. And I left that because they offered me Santa Barbara. And then he was the last producer on Santa Barbara. Unfortunately, the show had sort of bitten the dust by then, by the time he came on board. So there wasn't a whole lot he could do.
People love Santa Barbara. They talk about it all the time, still talk about it. Did you have a favorite scene partner on Santa Barbara?
I can't say favorite. They were so different. But Louise, of course, stands out, Louise Sorrell, because her Augusta and my Lionel, we just had a little magic together. But I adored Lenore Kasdorf. She was, after Louise left and went elsewhere, Days of Our Lives, I think, yeah. Lenore and I were put together, and just she was not only a wonderful actor and highly desirable, she just, she was a great human being, I hope.
I grew up watching her on Guiding Light. She was great. Lenore was great on that show. One of our fans, did you get to work with a young Robin Wright on Santa Barbara?
She was my best friend on Santa Barbara.
She was.
Yeah, years later, we were pals. We kind of didn't see each other a whole lot after she married Sean Penn. he didn't seem to care for me very much. I'm not sure he understood our relationship, which was very close, but not, we were never lovers. It was just close, and I adored her, and she seemed to adore me. I even taught her mother how to scuba dive.
Oh, that's so funny. She's a talent as well.
And I saw her movie recently, The Land. Oh my God, she's so brilliant. She wrote, directed it, and plays the lead in it. You got to see that movie. It's
Land.
The Land, yeah.
Oh,
I
have to check that out.
Yeah.
How did the role of Jack Madison on The Bay come along?
Gregory just called me and asked me if I wanted to do it, and I'd never done an internet series, and certainly never done a startup thing like that. And so I said, sure, and so I devoted perhaps a few too many years to it, but for the most part, it was good fun, and Gregory was very generous.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a very nice,
smart guy.
And I just didn't agree with the writing, having worked with the best writers in the world, and
right.
So I think that. But other than that, it was a joy to work with them. I just saw them last week. They had a reception for the Bay, and I couldn't do. I think I already mentioned. I
season 6.
Yeah, and so John Apray played my part, and very well. But we're still all buddies, and they have some of the best actors in the world on that show, including all the Santa Barbara actors that they have.
You are correct. They have a lot. You have worked on an insane amount of primetime series. One of the most notables was playing Blair's father on the hit series Facts of Life. What do you remember of working on Facts of Life?
It was a joy. I hate to sound like a Pollyanna. So much I like to talk about is positive, but it is positive. So what am I going to do? Drag up nasty gossip? No. All those girls were unspoiled and terrific to work with. Every single one of them. The directors, the producers. It was just great fun. I wish I'd done more. As I said before on this program, I love doing comedy. I adore doing comedy.
Is that your favorite?
Sorry?
Is that your favorite comedy?
I can't say it's my favorite.
But you enjoy it.
The Blood Knot was certainly not a comedy. It had comedic moments, but it was serious stuff. Serious stuff. Yeah.
And you, like I said, you've done so many prime time. I mean, you've Buck Rogers, and Star Trek. I mean, being part of sort of the sci-fi world, what is that like? That
was particularly interesting because it was Jonathan's first job as a director, and he was confident, but not overconfident. And
Jonathan Frakes, right?
Johnny Frakes, yeah. And so I said, well, there's something about this admiral that doesn't quite click, and that is he mistakenly kills the android's daughter, experimenting on her, right? I said, but can I inject some sense, not self-pity, but regret, just as a scientist, that the human side, can I just give you a glimmer of that? And he said, oh yeah. So that's what came out. And even Whoopi Goldberg, who was there, that wonderful woman. Oh, she's
a big fan. Oh, is she on that too? I know she's a big fan, but she's also on that, right?
Yeah.
So did you get to work with her?
No, she was just, and I was such a fan of hers. I was bubbling all over her, She kind of knew who I was. So
who do you look up to today, or who do you admire today? Some of the younger actors coming up. Who do you?
Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
He's our Brando.
Wow.
I like Javier Bardem, the great Spanish actor.
Yeah.
I like what's the girl in the film that I voted for?
Jessica Chastain.
No, the other one. Oh, I love Jessica Chastain. Oh,
Yeah.
love her.
Yeah, she's great.
Promising woman or promising woman.
Oh,
Huh?
Promising
No.
Young Woman. I know who you're talking about. I just saw that movie.
Helen
Yes,
Morgan.
Carrie Mulligan.
Carrie Mulligan.
Carrie, yes,
Ah,
she
what an
she was
actor.
she,
What an
that
actor.
that role was amazing.
And Viola Davis.
Yeah,
And oh my God, I won't tell who I voted for because they were all these nominees this year were staggeringly good.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I loved Viola.
Talk
Viola.
about a nice person. Yeah, I like to talk about nice people in the business because you hear so much crap, so much
Yeah.
gossip. Like Tom Hanks. I read a thing the other day, somebody's questioning his acting, and I went, what? That's like questioning James Stewart. Yes, he plays heroic roles, and he does them well, you know. So what? Don't forget to say about, oh yeah, my wife is giving me cue cards. Said don't forget to, I did a horror film this year, for my first horror film. I
Oh,
wrote
great!
it, but
You
I never been
wrote the
in
film?
The Deep Ones.
You didn't write.
I didn't write this. No, I was in it.
Okay.
And shall we say, none of us were kindly reviewed, but the picture seemed to be doing well. And
Where is it available now? The Deep Ones.
and Redbox and Walmart.
I think Amazon as well.
Oh, Amazon Prime, maybe. Okay, The Deep Ones, horror
Maybe.
film.
Forgive me.
Oh, you know who? Did you work with Kelly Maroney in the movie? She's in it. I just looked up her name.
Oh yeah.
She was on, but I don't know. You may not have had a scene with her. She's a daytime actress from The Edge of Night.
Aha, that's what
She was in The Edge of Night, or
Oh,
Ryan's
it's
Hope.
good
Sorry,
acting. Really good acting.
She was in Ryan's Hope.
My friends, Bob, Maria,
Robert Miano.
and what?
Robert Miano.
Miano, Bob Miano, and his wife Sylvia Sprouse. We're all in the actor studio, so we knew each other for years before I did it, and they're wonderful in the film. He plays these spooky characters, and yeah, it was very fun because Chad, the guy who wrote and directed it, he's really clever. I mean, to work with that kind of low budget. Oh, also, I've never done a film with that low budget. I've done some really low budget stuff, but that was
Really low budget.
It doesn't really show it. Yeah.
Well, I know we can't talk about it, but I'm excited. Nicholas is going to go have a COVID test after this, so he could go to work. He's got a job coming up, so everybody be on the lookout. Still working.
People say, sorry?
What were you going to say?
Oh, people say, you're still working? I say, yeah. I mean, granted, at my age, most of the roles are, they're old guys with tubes up their nose lying in a hospital bed. But this isn't. This is kind of a fun, kind of creepy old guy.
That's great. It's great that you're working. Keeps you young. Do you have any
I
career?
want to remind you that actually I've written 2 screenplays and kind of finished them during COVID as well. One is a thriller, and it's it could be called a bit of a horror film because there's some superstitious stuff in it.
Is there a role for you in it?
I'm kind of proud. One is called The Sun Also Dies.
Okay.
And that's the thriller. And then one is called Changing Stations, about a young woman who's a lieutenant commander in the Navy who doesn't know who her father is. And she finds this old actor, and it's not for sure. And they go on this trip together. And during that trip, a whole lot of dramatic stuff happens.
Are there roles for you in each one of them?
Well, when I wrote Changing Stations, the one with the naval commander, I wrote that a long time ago, and then just recently rewrote it. But I think I'm probably a little too old for that part. So if you have younger actors in their 60s who itching to find a great leading role, this one is really good.
Have you ever wanted to direct?
Yeah, actually, I went to New York University Film School when I was doing a Broadway show. I was standing by, and I said, "Well, can I not be here except if John Gavin doesn't go on?" They said, yeah. So I went to NYU Film School, and I directed a bunch of films and got nicely graded. But then I got busy as an actor, and I've never directed an actual film. But I would like to do at least one of these.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the ones you've written would be amazing. That would be great. One of the ones. Do you have any career regrets?
Yeah, easily. I was on Broadway. I had played back-to-back good parts in Twigs and Otherwise Engaged, and even off Broadway and Benito Cereno, which we represented the country in Europe during our bicentennial. And I was, shall we say, I was in the ascendancy on Broadway. And then I got divorced and left and came to California. I don't regret it because I met Beth and had our wonderful son. So I don't regret that. I just, as a career move, it was not too good.
Right.
Because even Jason Robards came to see me in one of my last plays on Broadway, and he said, "Pappy," he said, "you're a great American actor." I said, "Coming from you, buddy, that's something." And I don't know about that, but I do know that I enjoyed it. But I think that I had worked for almost 30 years straight, 6 days a week in the theater. And I think I was probably a little tired. So all I really needed was a vacation, not to move and change my life. So
that's a lot. That's a lot of theater.
Yeah.
30 years and 6 days a week. That's a lot of theater. Do you have a favorite primetime role or movie that you've done?
Well, I always quote All the President's Men because it's the best movie I ever did. It's a great American movie, not because I'm in it, but I did start the plot. And Robert Redford is one of the most generous leading men producers that I've will ever work with.
Wow.
And in that film, I played the lawyer at the beginning of the film, this fancy ass lawyer who's sitting in a courtroom about to defend these Cuban bandits. And Redford, the young reporter, comes in and sits in back of me, and he spots me and he said, "Are you the attorney of record?" I said, "I'm not here." And it started the plot. And then he chased me throughout the courtroom and, trying to find out who the hell I am. And so about a year later, I'm walking down Broadway and this guy comes up to me with a Southern accent. He said, "You played Markham in All the President's Men." I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "That was remarkable because I went to college. I went to law school with Markham." I said, "Did you really?" He said, "You even got the Virginia accent. How did you?" I said, "Well, my family are Tennesseans, which is close. And it wasn't difficult." He said, "You really got him. You really got him." So as a whole movie, I also like Reds. Now I played a kind of wussy guy in that. I played Diane Keaton's prissy husband. But the film was a great American film.
But working opposite her has got to be fun. I mean, she's as crazy as they come, but she seems like the funnest crazy. Yeah,
she didn't seem a bit crazy. She was, delighted.
Fun crazy. She's a fun, talented. She's got spunk. That one.
Yeah, she had.
She has spunk. And I said this to you on the phone, but you were in one of my favorite shows, Charlie's Angels, working
Oh yeah.
working opposite Jacqueline Smith.
Yeah.
And
I
in
had
Other
to run
Worlds.
after her. I had
And
to
in
run
Other-
after her, but they
Yes.
didn't want me to catch her because they wanted to make her look really athletic. I was
Yeah.
already in my 40s, but I in those days I used to run. So
She
I caught up
chased-
with her. And the director
She
said,
chased
no,
you. She chased you across the football field.
That's right. And
Yeah.
and I was supposed to let her catch up with me. And she said, Nick, I can't run it.
But
was so
she
sweet.
she
Very
was
sweet woman.
she was playing. It was a reporter who was being attacked, and that was Linda Dano from Another World. I don't know if you know who Linda Dano was.
Of course I do.
Okay, I don't know if she was on when you were there. Was
We
she?
weren't together. No, we weren't on
Yeah.
together, but I
Yeah.
remember her well.
So I think Jacqueline Smith's part was somebody was going, your character, I think, was going after Linda Dano. And because Jacqueline was, the detective, she pretended to be Linda. But I remember you running across that field.
I remember Cheryl Ladd. I had the biggest crush on her. Unofficially.
Chasing you.
I wish she'd chase me.
Nicholas, you are a delight to talk to. Everybody, please pick up Nicholas's Another Whole Afternoon memoir. It is available on Amazon. You have to go get your test this afternoon.
You need to rush away.
Yeah, pretty soon.
Pretty soon. Well, thank you so much for being here and talking to us today.
Bless you all. Thank you.
Here, I'm going to smile. Let's take a picture. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Have a great afternoon, Nicholas. Thank you so much.
And you're a great audience. Thank you for watching.
Thanks. Thanks for tuning in today, everybody. I hope you enjoyed Nicholas as much as I did. Don't forget to pick up his book. It's available on Amazon. And I will see everybody on Friday. Have a great afternoon. Bye.